Right, is everybody still awake after the lunch? Please don't fall asleep. I'll do my best not to allow you. Great, we're gonna talk about growing products without building features. We're gonna talk about hacking growth, working with other departments, hacking sales incentive, etc. So the story that happened to me is once I started shifting from focusing on the outputs, like in a recent talk, to outcomes, meaning success is not just shipping something, but moving the numbers, moving the OKRs. I started realizing that oftentimes the best way to move the number is to not build something, but to send an email, notification, or ping another team, hack sales incentives, ask marketing team to do something, and we're going to talk about it. Now, why should you trust me? I've done some of this a couple times. I had a startup. I've worked as a product director at Vimeo in a deal. Fairly large and successful companies, thousands of employees, millions of users, about $500 million revenue each of these. And some of the tools that I share here were part of this success. Obviously, not all of it. And it's important to note, in my journey to these roles, these tools were great for me for career growth as well. So for anyone here who feels like they're stuck, they're trying to look for their next step in career growth in their current company, especially, I'm going to share a bunch of great tips where you can show initiative, take more ownership, and deliver great impact. And before we continue, can I ask here, how many people here work in B2B products? Great. And B2C, I assume more or less the rest. Great. It's a great mix-up. We're going to talk about both. And also, I'm curious, how many have been on a call with a salesperson, with a client in the past months? Okay, good, good. We have a lot to discuss. All right. I'm going to share basically 3 stories about my collaboration with sales team, with marketing team, and with customer success. And starting with sales. Who has seen these kind of Slack messages before? It's a rhetorical question, no need to answer. Everybody who's ever worked in B2B sales has seen these, like, I need this feature, just one feature to close this super important deal. Please help me earn my living by shipping this one feature. Can you commit to shipping this one in Q1? Can we just say to the customer that we have this? Many, many messages like this one, and they create a lot of mess if not handled properly. Here's an example of a real slide deck from Vimeo, from my time at Vimeo. When based on messages like these, some product managers started to started to report to leadership how many requests we had of this kind or another kind, and you can see on x-axis there's y-axis there's number of requests, and y-axis there's the average deal size that asked for these. Leadership wants to have some visibility. What is in the pipeline? What are the missing feature gaps? But it turned out that it's complete bullshit. Like, all of this was complete bullshit because it was not true. It was based on a data that was completely biased. For example, one way it was biased, here's a breakdown of where it was coming from. You can see majority was submitted by customer success managers. Only 4%, I think, were submitted by account executives. Those who don't know the difference, account executives mostly focus on closing new deals. Customer success managers mostly focus on making existing clients happy. And even within, among the customer success managers, CSMs, there was a heavy bias from 2 top people submitting majority of requests. So you can imagine this creates a huge bias in the data where you can see only portion of what's important, and that way how you prioritize wrong features, and it creates so much mess. The leadership wants to know what are we prioritizing and why. The sales leadership tells that they're seeing other gaps, and then the product leadership says, like, this is the data we have, and it creates a lot of conflicts. It's a big mess. So I decided, okay, I'm going to fix this. The reason for that was because my product was impacted by this more than other products. I had a lot of requests from enterprise, and I was feeling a lot of this pressure, like, why aren't we shipping X, Y, and Z? And I just wanted to have my defense argument. This is what we're shipping because of this was a top request. So one of the problems was that I didn't have authority to do this. In order to create a system like this where we could track feature request adoption across the entire organization, I needed collaboration of about 35 product managers, about 100 salespeople, and about 100 customer success managers. And I only had 7 PMs reporting to me. Not only, it's a lot. But I didn't have authority to do this. So this is going back to the case that I mentioned before for those who are seeking for career opportunities. This can be a good opportunity. Like, you can look around if you're sick of, if you want to take a bit of a break from building another feature and you want to try out something else, you could start looking into this collaboration with other departments. It's a great way to show initiative and take on more ownership and do some good. All right, so how do we do this? First, you got to understand the motivation of the sales team. On average, about 40% of their compensation is based on them hitting their goals, closing their deals, hitting their quotas. The other 60% is base usually, that's what they get paid guaranteed, and about 40 depends on hitting those goals. So naturally, their only mindset is to close that deal, like whatever the cost. So whenever they see a feature gap when they're talking to a client, they would usually come to one of these 3 approaches. Either they get the product team to commit to closing this gap. This is where all the Slack messages are coming from. Or they can sell around these feature gaps. And that's what sales leadership would often train sales teams to do. That means persuading client that they don't need this feature, there's a better way, alternative way, and the product is still good without that feature. Or the third one, they would not waste their time on this deal and they would move on to another one. And this is also a big problem. If you're trying to get a good visibility, sometimes you don't even realize how much visibility you're losing in early stages of the funnel when there's still SDR, sales development reps, who are qualifying the initial deals. They would often disqualify disqualify a lead, or the account executive would not want to engage with them because they know that this client wants something that our company doesn't have, and they would just skip them, and this information is lost. But for product teams, having this information would be gold, because that's how you prioritize. Then you know, like, if you're losing deals because of it, you can prioritize some of these feature gaps, and you can increase the win rate. So with that mindset, you got to keep in mind that whatever you ask the sales team, whatever collaboration you want to have with them, it needs to be extremely respectful of their time. It needs to be super simple. And it needs to give them, they need to have a reason to do this. First, they can be nice to you, but they also need to have ROI on this. They need to have some payoff. I would break it down into 3 steps. How I built it and how I would recommend building the process of asking the sales teams to submit features requests in a structured way. First, clean input. Very critical. You got to make an entry of those feature requests extremely simple. Best case would be in Salesforce, where they work, where they have that's where they spend most of their time in. In my case, that's what I did. Some simple button in Salesforce that creates this request form. It should take them ideally not more than 10 seconds. And one funny fact that I heard from revenue operations team is the sales teams, whenever they have to scroll something in Salesforce forms, they never scroll and they just pick whatever is there. So that's limited us to 10 items. Like whenever there's a feature request, there was only 10 types of breakdowns that we could structure it with. Then it's also very important to tie each individual feature request to a specific deal to make sure the sales team are not hacking around it and there's someone real, and then you can go back to them and ask follow-up questions. So that's very important. You create a system to create ad hoc requests when something comes up, and you make it required when salesperson loses a deal and they said that they lost it because of product. You make this a required process, and obviously you work with sales leadership on that. And also a fun fact for me was that the sales teams didn't realize that they need to submit same request a couple times. They thought, like, if they submitted it once, they never have to submit it again. And it helped me a lot when I asked them explicitly to submit it again and again for every client they face, because the more they submit, the higher the chance is that we'll prioritize it. Second thing is the processing side. I could give a whole separate talk about this. Basically, the idea here is that once the sales team submits, they need someone on the product side to make sure they read these requests and give them and prioritize and process them in some way. But going through it briefly, it's very important for every request to have an owner at all times. I did it by cascading down from VP of product, one of those 10 items that I had in a Salesforce dropdown. I assigned one of the VPs of product, and then they would assign one of the PMs to each of these. It's very helpful to have a transparent space for everybody in the organization to be able to see the real-time view of where things are. It's a big ask for PMs to stop responding to those Slack messages and to guide them direct to this unified process, because that's where all the trouble starts. Basically, the slogan I had for PMs, because again, they didn't report to me, I just said, like, if you invest 1 hour of your time per month, you'll have a clean data about the feature gaps from the sales team. And you shame PMs who don't do this. It's very important. Shame is a very effective tool, speaking from someone who was both shaming others and who was shamed in Slack channels. There's all sorts of dynamics that come with that. All right. The third one is where the value for sales team comes in. It's the feedback loop. Most important thing that we did was notify the sales team, the submitters, from the sales team, that the feature gap is closed so they can re-engage the client and maybe win a deal now. It's a very handy tool because they likely forgot about them altogether. We showed reports either every month or every quarter summarizing what we see. It was very important to do a real-time check-in with the sales leadership and a couple of selective account execs to see to double check whether what we're seeing with the data matches what they're seeing anecdotally. And if it doesn't, then we would double click and see, are they biased, or do we have a wrong information? And once we clarify that, we can have a much higher confidence that we're looking at the right data. And generally, as you work with sales, try to be sales and anyone else in the org, try to be helpful to them. For sales team, it's joining the calls, it's helping them close the deal, sell the clients on the roadmap, sell them about the workarounds. It's also great learning for you. As a result, we would get a table like this one, where you would see top features, top 10 features by total ARR, annual recurring revenue, and the number of opportunities that have requested this, and the status of each of these. And just this one slide saved probably weeks of communication with sales leadership and company leadership, and just helped align everybody and created a lot of value in itself with a strong confidence in the data. Right. Last notes on this one is the outcome of this whole thing was we quadrupled number of feature requests per month from sales team. It contributed to the growth of our enterprise product from 1% of companies' revenue to 30% companies' revenue. And most importantly, it helped with one promotion for me. Side note, it also could be a whole separate talk. A lot of this can be automated with AI. At Deal, the next time I did it, I was able to feed a lot of gone conversations, the recording of sales conversations, the transcripts. I feed them into ChatGPT and ask to detect any product sentiment or any requests for features that we don't have, and it was working fairly well. It's not a 100% replacement, but 2 of them give you a fairly good overview of overall picture. Good. Okay, almost half the time. Great. Next story was with marketing. It's going to be shorter. And it started with this SED slide from my past, SED chart. These 2 lines show the new installs and I think monthly active users for a product I launched. And you can see I did a great job here launching a product in October 20, growing. Then there was this huge spike, and then there's this slow, painful stagnation when products stop growing. The spike in the middle, it was turned out that it was my marketing team, paid search team specifically, experimenting the hell out of this product and just launching, throwing a lot of money at different acquisition campaigns, trying different things, and concluding that it doesn't work for them and they don't want to invest in it too much anymore. So they just removed the investment, and then along with other product problems, we faced this painful stagnation. what happened here? The marketing team and the product team had different goals. The marketing team wanted to hit their revenue goals, while product team, myself, I wanted to win the market share. I, by design, had a free product. I didn't want to upsell it. I was very aggressive on winning as many users and activating them as possible. We'll learn about it a bit too late, but once we did, we were able to fix it and have some meaningful impact. The whole idea was that we would share insights with the marketing team. We would operate from the same information, and we were able to launch a bunch of great campaigns. First one, as they were optimizing for revenue growth, they were waiting for users to convert to a paid plan within 7 days, and then they would consider a campaign unsuccessful if it wasn't. What we did, we told them, hey, like within 7 days, they're not going to convert to paid by design, because that's how we designed the product. But they can activate, they can start taking actions in a product that we care about, and this will be a leading indicator that they will convert to a paid plan. So give us at least 30 days to convert them to paid, and that's what they did, and it was extremely, extremely helpful. And that's just the beginning of it. There's a lot that we could go. We could do more with it. The other thing we did is targeting certain geographies or user types that we know work best in product, that convert best from install to activation. What did work best for us was targeting specifically business users. We also launched a different messaging, marketing campaigns, taking into account the things we know from users, why they love us, why they love this product. And one of my favorite ones is to create a lead magnet, especially in B2B. It's great when you create something free of value, very easy to use, instant return, like instant value for the user. That combined with the experimentation on paid search or other marketing tactics, that can create wonders. So highly recommended to consider. And I don't have the real slide of the impact, so I just had to Photoshop a bit, but that's basically what happened after we worked together. I was very proud of it. All right. Now, off to the last one. Most recent one for me, it's working with customer success. So, when I started to look into why clients churn, I was hoping to find there's some big features or something I could address easily. But what I instead found was this: just clients just walking away from our product silently. They just stopped engaging, stopped paying, stopped answering emails, stopped answering calls. And this is the story of lots and lots of B2B companies. I would say number one is disengagement, and the number two reason probably is pricing. And at the same time, especially in feature factories, we've built so many features. There's like gazillion features with like less than 0.1% adoption across the user base, because we had to build this one feature to win this one deal to help a salesperson hit their quota. These two things combined, they didn't make sense to me. So what I intended to do is to power up collaboration with customer success team to fix this problem. And what you need to know about CSM is they care primarily about retention. It's their number one goal. But they also do care about CSAT score, the customer happiness, and the lifetime value. That means not just retaining, but also upselling them. And that in itself sounds like a lot of product teams. Product teams and CSM have extremely similar goals, but most of them don't work together. Can I ask here, how many people here, especially from the B2B PMs, have had a conversation with a CSM in the past months? Okay, it's something. It's great. I hope this keeps it up. This motivates you to do more. So what we intended to do with customer success was quite advanced. So I'll let this slide sink in for a minute. So we are going to increase retention by increasing adoption of retention-driving features. That's a concept in itself. And we would do that by financially incentivizing CSMs, that means paying them more money, to increase adoption of those features in their portfolio. So what this means, the end goal is increased retention. Second point is, we know or we think that there are some features that which clients use that then lead to higher retention. And what we then did is we would pay customer success managers more money if they can get clients, their clients, to use those features. Here's how we went about it. First of all, you gotta align with CSM leadership. They need to be on board with this, otherwise it will fail. So first of all, align with CSM leadership. Second, pick those retention driving features. This can be difficult. This is an easy area for analysis paralysis. We can spend months and months finding this correlation and causation charts. But my recommendation would be to start with some user best guess. Usually, if you know your clients well and your product well, you would have some good bets. Integrations are a safe bet always. In most products, integration correlate with higher retention, and often not just correlate, but also cause higher retention. So use your best guess with some data, and I would recommend picking about 20 features. Why 20? You cannot pick like 100 because customer success managers will need to promote them, will need to understand them, will have a very good pitch about each of them. Well, also you don't want to have too few because you want to give some tool set for CSMs to be able to pick from different features and mention the relevant one for their client. So like for us, 20 felt like a good number. The third one is to define adoption of these features. That's where a lot of work goes in, a lot of collaboration with other teams. And it's extremely important to be very explicit and have a very strong definition because people's salary will depend on it based on the definitions you put here. So, for example, a bad type of definition, and I would take a deal as an example. There's one of the features to rent equipment, like a laptop, sending a laptop to your employees. A bad example would be saying something like, well, client rented equipment and we consider feature adopted. That raises a lot of questions. When did they rent equipment? How big? How many employees in this organization rented equipment? How long ago, etc. So you want to be explicit, and a better example of a good definition would be 30% of a client workforce rented one or more pieces of equipment in the last 6 months. And then once you do that, you'll have endless debates with CSMs on what are the fair drop-off points, why is 30, why is it not 20? And that's where you have to start somewhere and iterate. Especially if you can do the proper analysis later, you'll have better ground. But you got to start somewhere. This is an example of a of a dashboard. I built a deal with analytics team, obviously, that showed this in practice. And it iterated a lot from here, but this should give you an idea. So at the top, we have a bunch of filters here, and this one is filtered by a specific CSM. This is like a headline. How many organizations have adopted at least one feature out of those 20 that we mentioned? How many adopted at least 2? How many adopted at least 3? There's many ways you could break it down. And in case of the CSM, and this was test data, so don't pay much attention to specific numbers, this CSM had 9 organizations who have adopted only one feature, and that's it. So you can see there's a huge area of growth here. Then we have this table here that showed specific individual company and their breakdown. Obviously, I had to blur it. It shows the state of the company, how many. Basically how big their contract is, not to get into specifics of what deal is. And it shows the number of features adopted by this organization, and then specific adoption of individual features. For example, % of employees in a company with equipment. In this case, it was 9, so it was counted as adopted. I don't remember the threshold specifically. Or, for example, there's a feature called autopay, and you could see that %. And then this would allow the specific CSM to reach out to a specific client who has this case, who has a potential need for this feature, and say like, hey, you know, you can do this and that, and we see there are clients who use this feature are much more successful than everyone else, and this is great for client, this is great for CSM, and great for company. Right, and then the last step, once you have those features defined, you would set goals and incentives for CSMs. That would usually fall on the customer success leadership team. It's not purview of product leadership, but still it's helpful to give a couple tips here. The big balance is to it's to balance out the achievability of those goals versus aggressiveness and budget. Because you want CSMs to strive, to work hard and to increase those numbers. You want it to pay off. But if it's unachievable, then CSMs will lose interest, motivation. It's not going to work out. So a good thing that we did was cascading rewards. For example, there it is. If 20% of their clients would have 10 features adopted, they would get additional $400 per month. And I don't remember specific numbers. It's an example. But then if half of their portfolio would have 10 features adopted, they would get additional $1,000 per month. It's great motivation. And the motivation to also keep it up. Because you can think a client could pass its threshold once and then fall out. So the CSM now would be motivated to keep track of their portfolio and make sure it doesn't go below the threshold. And the last part, which is very difficult here, is a return of investment. It's hard to calculate it because you would see the results couple quarters from now, probably. And you can try to calculate it and do your best, but I would say it requires a leap of faith from leadership to do it. And I give huge credit to Deal's leadership. They immediately saw the opportunity and invested in it. All right, couple more notes. When I did this at Deal, this became a company-wide OKR for a company of 3,000 people. That was a big thing. And about 300 people, I think, had this as their goal. The magical part for me started when the product managers were given the same goals, similar goals, like increase adoption of this feature or that feature, while CSMs had increased adoption of all features. And aligning incentives of product managers and CSMs would give them freedom and opportunity to work on the same thing, just with different tools. PMs usually build features, they improve the experience, maybe improve the adoption, maybe some visibility within the product, while CSMs would usually talk to clients, explain the feature, and elaborate and have more personal touch. And the last part is automation. There's also a great amount of automation related to this. There's a product called Gainsight that allows personalizing presentations to individual clients by CSMs and recommend specific features. Like this could be used to recommend specific features to individual clients of different industry, profile, geography, etc., or based on the features they are already using. There's also another great tool called Braze, which allows automating sending either in-product notification or emails and create sequences based on similar information, the best fit of features for the client. All right, we're wrapping this up. If I can leave you with one message, the most important message of this presentation is to align incentives with other teams you're working with. Just make sure you're running in the same direction and not fighting, even if you're running away from the dog or whatever this is. Aligning incentives creates magic, and then you can utilize that to collaborate and boost your product. The final, just couple more points was to recap is to understand motivation of other teams. So understanding their motivation and their OKRs, how is their success measured? And then again, if their success is not measured the way you need it to, then you influence their incentives and their goals, and you try to align those incentives. And the last one, these types of conversations and initiatives are a great career growth opportunity, especially if you feel stuck. And that would be it. Thank you very much. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. It was a pleasure talking with you.